do this. So this is a discussion, so you can ask questions anytime. And what I want to talk about is suitable beaches beaches for oyster gardening. Now most of us have a beach, so it's not, most of it aren't shopping for a beach, so it's how good is our beach and what can I grow on the beach is another way to think of it. And so also we'll look at the large scale on Whidbey Island, and we'll focus in on the beach scale. Where's the best place to go on that beach? And so we're going to talk about different beach types. So maybe, you'll see some of this that might be interesting for you. So let's see. Okay, anyway, what do you need to grow oysters? Well, you got to have some kind of control of land. So you got to have ownership or permission. You definitely have to have clean water because you want to eat these things. Now, maybe some people say, well, fine, you don't need to eat them, but why grow oysters if you don't need them? So you need, I would say, low to moderate wave energy, and that depends on the type of oyster you're growing. But that's an important component. You need a suitable substrate or structure. So substrate being the right kind of beach, structure being, maybe you got a dock, maybe you got rocks you're hanging off of. Typically, we got people who grow oysters on the beach, or we have people who suspend them in the dock. Loon Point, there's a bunch of people doing it that way. Down in Sandy Point, also Sandy Hook, there's also a number of people growing on their docks. I'll talk a little more about that later.
Can you suspend them successfully off a mooring buoy, or is that too much action?
Can be done, but it's really too much flotation for the bag. So if you're going to want them floating on the surface, you're better off having individual floats on the bags and anchoring as a separate system. That's, I think, a better option. The problem with the buoy, there's a couple problems with the buoy. If you have a single point buoy with one anchor line, well then you get everything tangled up. And if you've got a buoy, it's going to be big enough it's really going to bounce on every wave. And depending on where you are, likely to be way too much bouncing action for the oysters. So you want to size the float to the weight of the oysters in the bag. And you want them to bounce, but not too much. You actually wear holes in them. You wear the shells out if they bounce too much. That's a whole, floating gear is a whole technique. I did a lot of work in Wilp on that. Now tailors are using it. They're doing them that way. But you got to have the right location. So that's, and like I said, it depends on the species.
Are these slides going to be available, or should I take photos of them on my phone?
You know,
If you send them to me,
she was gonna.
Yeah.
Okay, I can send it to you.
Yeah. So I've got a website where we'll have the recordings, transcript, slides, link,
So let's talk about types of oysters, because most people don't realize there are different types of oysters, so we can grow different types of oysters. So I've grown 5 different types of oysters in Holmes Harbor. And so the most common, probably more than 99% of what we're growing, are Pacific oysters. Crassostrea gigas, also called the Japanese oyster, because all of our oysters came from Japan. In fact, all the oysters in Puget Sound, or all the oysters we're growing in Washington, all came from Matsushima Bay, one bay in northern Japan. It's north of Tokyo. It's actually right near Fukushima.
So none of them are indigenous?
None of the Pacific oysters. We'll get to the indigenous oysters. We're talking about Pacific oysters. This is Crassostrea gigas. This is not native. None of them are. They all originated in Japan. And like
Brought over by us. They didn't like.
Brought over by us. They all originated in one bay from Japan, Matsushima Bay. And for years, starting in the 20s when they first started bringing them in, they had to bring seed. They brought seed in every year because we didn't have any natural set. We didn't have hatcheries. So there was like an entire industry in Matsushima Bay that collected oyster seed, packed them up, sold them to the Washington farmers. They put them on a ship. They put sprinklers up so they keep them moist all the way across the Pacific. And they got over here to plant. That happened until the 70s. So in the 70s, we got two things. We had natural sets. They became naturalized in some parts of Puget Sound, largely Hood Canal, Bayview Bay, and southern end of Willow Bay. So they became naturalized, and growers were able to collect seed. Unfortunately, it's not a regular occurrence. So, if you want to harvest every year, you want to have seed to put out every year, and it doesn't happen every year. So, You might get 3 years in a row, and then you miss a year.
Wait, with the Pacific ones, that's true?
I'm talking about the Pacifics.
Oh, wow.
Right. So the solution was to eventually went to hatcheries, but there's still a reliance on the natural set too.
Yeah, it's another set of questions, but I'll let you keep going.
Yeah. So these are Pacific oysters. Now the interesting thing about Pacific oyster is it is a very plastic growing shape. So if you've ever left a bag and not gotten to it, and you've got oysters that are grown into the corners, and I mean, they will grow any shape at all, whatever they're confined to. They will go right through a bag. I mean, the shell will enmesh that will grow into the bag. You've probably seen that. You know? Sometimes you got to take a stick and beat them off because they're going into the bag. So they were very plastic. So they're not the easiest oyster. If you want a nice cup shape like these, it's not the easiest oyster to do. You've got to have conditions just right to get a nice cup shape half shell oyster, if that's what you want. What kind of oysters do you think these are?
Well, I was going to say Pacific.
Yeah, you're right. These are Pacific oysters.
Okay.
So as you see, they're pretty gnarly. They grow all kinds of strange shapes. But in this case, they're going to be shucked for meat. So shape really doesn't matter. What you want is a good meat yield out of it. And if you're going to grow them suspended like this, you can actually get a really good meat yield. And the shells are softer. They're easier to shuck. They're very sharp. That's the problem with it. But they're sometimes they the shuckers like them because they can go through them really fast. So that's the Pacific oyster. Tends to be Matsushima Bay is north of Tokyo. It's still warmer than Puget Sound. It's a continental climate. It gets colder in the winter, but it's much warmer in the summer. So they tend to like warm water, which is why it took them. They're not everywhere in Puget Sound. It's most places in Puget Sound. It's too cold for them to spawn and survive and set.
So is Hood Canal warmer water?
The reason they do well in Hood Canal is because you get very warm water. Daybob Bay gets into the 70s, and that's what they need. They need a couple of weeks in 70 degree water to do well successfully.
Oh, all Pacific oysters?
All Pacific oysters.
What about?
Need a couple weeks of water up in the 70s?
Yeah, close to 70.
So is Holmes Harbor gets up to the 70s?
Holmes Harbor is suitable.
Okay.
So what happens is, part of the variability of this is, so Daybob Bay, there used to be a big industry of collecting their oysters. All the growers used to go to Daybob Bay. They would put out their shell, and the timing is real important. Put out your shell too early, it gets fouled up with algae, you don't catch a set. Put it out too late, you missed it. So timing was, they had, State Fisheries had a guy that, what he did was monitor the plankton. Said, okay, they're up to this size now, so get your gear ready. They're going to set in a week, and actually try to predict it, and it was fairly successful. Every now and then, you'd have all this larvae in Daybob Bay all ready to set, and you get a big northerly, and it blows them all out of the bay, and you miss a set. They land someplace else. So that happens.
Question
So
for
do they
you.
grow in aquariums or what now?
Pardon?
Do they put them in aquariums now? Or?
They raise them. They do the larval phase in the hatchery. So, which is a very expensive operation.
Hey, Kurt.
Yeah.
So the warmer temperatures that they prefer, they'll still spawn at lower temperatures?
They will
So
spawn
it's
at lower
not
temperatures.
Viable, or
Right.
does that work?
They won't develop, or it'll take them too long,
Okay.
and they'll just be blown. They won't find a place to set. Now you can find, for example, if you walk along the west, you go to Double Bluff, you'll find an oyster on a rock out there, or all along the west side. That's really cold water, way too cold for them. So where did that come from? Well, it probably came from Hood Canal. It was a larvae that was developed in Hood Canal and got a nice south breeze, blew it all the way to Whidbey Island. And there's been a couple of episodes like that, was it 2015? I think 2015 was a big year like that. Everything was warm. Larvae got set all over the place. South Sound had
the heat dome.
it might have been.
Okay.
South Sound had a big Pacific oyster set. That never happened. It hasn't happened. So there was 2 years. One was 1958 that happened, and 2015 it happened. They had a big set in South Puget Sound of Pacific oysters. That's very unusual. And actually, in some cases, that's maybe desirable, because if you got a beach full of oysters out there that you're going to sell as half shells, and you get a big oyster set, now you got oysters on top of your oysters. And that's a big problem, because you end up with a mess, if you end up with an unsellable half shell
So
oyster.
what kind of salinity is optimal?
They tolerate, Pacific oysters tolerate lower salinities, so optimal, well, I don't know exactly what the hatcheries will draw deep water and they use a fairly high salinity, like 28 or more, probably around 28, and they get better survival at that rate, but they'll tolerate,
Yeah.
we get down to we're typically in the mid to low 20s here in Holmes Harbor in the summertime, and that's fine.
I'm just wondering, because I have a stream that is seasonal, that comes down through a ravine at the Door Beach.
There's so much water out there that stream is not
You
gonna.
know, okay, because I know they just seem to grow slow. Yeah, that's what's right there. Okay, sorry.
It's not gonna make an impact on the larvae.
Okay.
So
Did you say that 20 degrees? What did you just say, 20? You mean or
well, if I said 20, I mean Celsius. Did I say 20?
No, you
did.
salinity. You're talking
Oh,
about
so
the
we're talking salinity.
Yeah.
Salinity.
Oh, okay.
In
Yeah,
the-
but your I just want to go back to like the temperature of the water, said 70 degrees.
Yeah,
Okay, so
but
I-
it
so-
can be a little lower. I think like
Okay.
68, which 68 is
so-
20 degrees Celsius.
Okay, so my question
So-
is, so Holmes Harbor is very long. What is the temperature differential? Has anyone ever measured between?
Huge.
Okay, because I'm curious.
I have
Between
measured
okay, so between like the north end, like by Bayview Island, versus the middle, versus close to Freeland Beach. Freeland Park
Yeah,
Beach.
I haven't measured that gradient. There is a gradient, and that's not as big as the vertical gradient. The real gradient that's important is the vertical gradient. So if you're out there in July and you're swimming without a wetsuit because the water's that warm, it's 68 degrees, well, you can usually, in those conditions, stick your hand down if you're cooler water, but that warm water goes down 20 to 25 feet. And when you hit about 20 to 25 feet, there's a really strong thermocline where it's lower salinity water and it's warmer, and that makes it less dense. So it's a density difference. It floats on top of cold water, and that density difference, you'll go from as you drop down, you might go out of you go 60, maybe down to 60-degree water, and then you hit the thermocline and go below. You drop into 52 degrees. That's the difference.
It mostly has to do with like the shallowness of the water, right? I mean, it's always, we all know it's warm.
It's going to be much
but
warmer
shallow.
in the shallows.
Right.
But I'm talking, if you go out in the middle of the harbor
Yeah.
and drop down vertically, you'll be in warm water until you hit about 20, 25 feet, and then you hit that
Really cold 55.
yeah,
Okay.
you hit the cold water.
Okay, so it's about the first 25 feet is the same temperature of warmth.
Yeah, there's a gradient within that too, especially when in the summertime you get this gradient all the way down. I mean, you can, if you're swimming out there, you can feel it from the,
Right.
you're really nice and toasty warm, and you stick your fingers down or your feet down, and you feel it's a little cooler. That's not the cold water, that's cooler water.
Yeah.
The cold water is much further down.
Okay, interesting.
This is also, I think, why if you're crabbing, crabs in the summertime don't like to be real shallow. They don't like that warm water.
Okay, that's why they're deeper.
That's why they're
They
deeper.
become shallower in winter crab.
Yeah. In the wintertime, there's not that difference, and so we have to come up much closer. Okay, so another oyster is Kumamoto oysters. Are any of you growing Kumamotos? You are? Yeah, okay. Well, guess where the Kumamoto is from? Kumamoto, Japan. Okay, it's from Kumamoto, Japan, Kumamoto Bay. That is quite a bit south of Tokyo, and it's a lot warmer down there. So the Kumamoto is a warmer water oyster, much warmer than a Pacific oyster. So here, in a lot of our areas, it tends to grow slow. It's a slow growing oyster anyway, but it's not going to do real well in cold water. So on the west side, it's not going to do particularly well because the water never warms up a whole lot. Its features, as you know, is it's small and naturally grows a cup shape. You don't have to do anything to it. It's not very plastic. It will grow that shape, and they they typically fatten up nice and have a nice meat in that cup shape. And the flavor is good. I think it's overrated because you can make a Pacific almost identical.
Right, that's what I heard. I mean, if they're the same size roughly, right?
Same size, if you get a nice fat little cup-shaped Pacific and you blindfolded someone, maybe they could tell, maybe not.
Depends on the Kumamoto. Some of them
Yeah.
real sweet and creamy.
Right, some of them are
Yeah,
creamy,
I think overblown.
but sometimes if you get a nice fat, glycogen loaded Pacific, it's also creamy. So, I've still got some Kumamoto, I've got one bag of Kumamotos, they must be 12 to 15 years old on my beach, I've got probably a dozen in there. And they never grow any bigger, because they're the runs. But I gave up on them because they grow slow, which means every year I got to scrape the bark off of them.
Yeah.
I still don't like doing that. Whereas I can get a Pacific every year at the right size and nice and fat.
Exactly, right?
So I don't bother with Kumamotos anymore.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like them and they're stuck, gotta have Kumamotos.
Yeah.
There aren't too many places in Puget Sound where they do very well. The best place is Chapman's Cove in Oakland Bay. That's where Taylor's grows almost all of their Kumamotos. And it's a fantastic place for Kumamotos. But there aren't too many other places like that. It gets really warm, it's fairly high, the water gets really warm, and they grow really fast. And they're very productive because Kumamotos are small, so you have a huge number of dollars per acre.
Yeah.
What's the largest Kumamoto you've seen?
Oh, I don't know, probably like this maybe?
Maybe, yeah.
I've never seen real big ones.
Yeah.
And that's not when they sell them. They sell them at, they sell them at the size.
Well, Taylor's got their Sumo Kumo one now, which is their
Sumo
older
Kumo?
ones.
Oh, yeah?
Sumo Kumo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who has those?
Small quantities. Taylor Shellfish. Yeah.
Taylor's
do you
is
know-
one of the few producers of Kumamotos. There aren't
Yeah.
too many other people.
They got the best
Hammerhammer's
land
some,
for
but
it.
Do you know how
Yeah.
big they're in their native bay?
I don't think they get any bigger than here.
They actually
It just
didn't
takes
have
long.
any.
Takes longer here.
They only recently got them back in Kumamoto. So there was a period of like a couple decades where there were no Kumamotos left in Kumamoto.
Yeah. I think there were some,
recently,
but it was
very
there was
commercial,
a
large
remnant
scale.
population. But
Yeah,
yeah, they were
significantly
they were pretty much
less.
gone.
Is that because of pollution or what?
No, I mean partly just attention to them because they grow so slow. Same with like our native species, the Olympia
I see.
oyster. If people are like, well, I have this faster growing one that is widely available.
So they
But then
were
there's been a lot of attention recently to them, so they've been doing a ton of work restoring them and building up those populations over in Kumamoto, which is really cool.
So the point of Kumamotos is, if you really want to do them well, you got to have the right location. You got to be nice and warm and fairly protected because they don't tolerate being bounced around. It slows them down. It just slows them down more. So if you got a good location, Holmes Harbor, there's probably some good spots in Holmes Harbor because it gets warm.
Boy, that really shows how small they are, right?
Well, these are Olympia oysters. Yes, this is the native oyster. This is our only native oyster, and it's called the Olympia. But the first big harvest were starting in the 1850s came out of Whidbey Bay, and they all went to San Francisco for the fuel the gold rush in the 1860s, and then the next move, of course, they fairly well devastated the commercial production of Olympias in Whidbey Bay within 20 years. By the 1880s, the production was dropping way dropping off. Then it moved to South Puget Sound, and South Puget Sound was very productive for oysters, and the growers were doing really pretty well, and they developed it very extensively in South Puget Sound. They had seed collecting areas. They did heavy beach modifications because the Olympia oyster has several features. One is it's very small, it's very slow growing, does not tolerate heat, does not tolerate cold. So it likes deeper water. It likes to be in the very low intertidal, likes to be covered with water. So its actual original habitat is pretty limited. So what they did in South Puget Sound was, after it became a state in 1889, the very first legislature of the state passed a law that said that oyster growers can buy their land and get title to their land. And they did that so that oyster growers could invest in their property, go to the bank, and make improvements. And they made huge improvements. So if you go down to South Puget Sound, they're still there. They built dikes, a series of dikes. So what they did is they flattened out the bottom, and they built a rim around it. So when the tide went out, it didn't go dry. The water sat there, and the oysters didn't dry out, so they tolerated the heat. So once they did that, they could move up in the intertidal. So they really extended the range of where they could grow Whidbey oysters. They did some incredible things. They would line the bottom of these dikes with like 4x12 clear fur.
What?
Yeah, which is still there
Wow.
and worth a fortune. And they built the dikes they built all around it was also wood. Later they went to cement and things like that. But a lot of those dikes are still there. Some of them are, there's 5 layers in Tottenham. I know places where there's 5 layers of dikes.
That's because the salt water doesn't destroy the wood, does it? I mean.
Yeah, it does.
Oh, it does?
Yeah, well, not if it's buried, not if it's in the mud.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
If it's in the mud, it's anaerobic and nothing gets it. But for the dikes, for the edge of the dikes that were all wood, they had to be replaced periodically. Tornadoes and gribbles ate them up. So it was constant maintenance. It was a huge operation. They would engineer these dikes so that the water would flow through them. So they had extensive water engineering going through these dikes, and quite an area. A lot of those dikes are still there. A lot of the rims are gone, but the bottom, you still have all these flat areas out there, which are all now growing Pacific oysters pretty much. But
So, I mean, I guess I thought I've had Olympias before, but I didn't remember them being quite this small.
well, they can be a little bigger than that, but that's it.
And yet there was a huge market for these commercially, it sounds
Oh,
like.
huge market. They shucked these even. A Hangtown Fry is shucked Olympia oysters. That's what they made it with.
There was a huge market, but there's not a big market.
There was a huge
Well,
market.
To
Whether
be
it
fair,
was-
there weren't other oysters that they could pull from for the gold rush.
Well, this market was really big. Started in San Francisco and then it spread, but it was local in this area too. But through the 1880s, when they lost the production out of Willapa Bay, they shifted south Puget Sound, and those guys made big money. They were doing really well up until 1927. Was it 27? Yeah, 27. 1927 is when they built the first pulp mill in Shelton. And it turns out Oakland Bay was their biggest, one of their biggest seed collecting areas. Well, the liquor, the wastewater from the pulp mill killed all the larvae and killed the industry. That was the end of the Olympia industry, and when the pulp mill started up. So it didn't extinct the oyster. It made the seed set low enough that it wasn't commercially viable to go set. They still set, and if you go to Totten Inlet, they set on subtidal and buoys and dock bottoms, things like that, boat bottoms, if you need your boat out there long enough. So they still set. You can still.
They still set naturally.
They set naturally.
I have an example downstairs of a Pacific this big with a whole bunch of Olympias that were on it from a Taylor farm down in South Sound.
Yeah. So you could still go out and collect them and grow them. There are very few. There used to be a couple people growing them. Somebody's still growing them. I don't know who, but Taylor's used to grow some.
Taylor's got still probably about 1 million.
They probably they
They
grow
have
a
a
few.
hard, it's hard to sell them. Yeah,
Taylor's
Hammerhammer's growing up
used to
their
shuck 'em.
populations.
Oh, Hammer over.
Yeah, so Hammerhammer and Hood Canal. They have a ton of wild set naturally. They're like one of the best in Washington.
They're mostly
right
Pacifics.
in their beach. Yeah, for the Pacific.
Pacific oysters.
And then Chelsea Farms, which has Neptune as their distributor. And then a couple little ones.
Yeah,
here and
Far
there, but those
Calm
are the
Cove used to
big
do them. I don't know
ones.
if he still is.
Yeah, and there's some down in California. There's big restoration efforts, and like Hog Island is getting into theirs down there.
So people don't order them much because they're too small or what?
They're very expensive.
Yeah.
They're not. I mean, they're the same price. It's just that you get a quarter of the oyster,
Exactly.
but the flavor is 4 times as
This is my
more
favorite oyster
complicated.
by
Yeah.
far. If the flavor is terrific.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's just convincing people, which is why I started my business.
So, growing Olympia oysters, so they're very particular in what they like. I've grown them subtidally in Holmes Harbor off rafts, and I've grown them on my beach. Both were miserable experiences. They grew really slowly. They do not like barnacles. Barnacles will kill them because the barnacles will set on the edge of the shell and prevent them from closing up properly. Kills them. And like I said, they don't like heat, they don't like cold. So if they're exposed on your beach and you get a big freeze in the winter, it'll kill them. If we get a heat spell, like kills off the mussels periodically, it'll kill them.
Would they grow better like in Admiralty Bay, somewhere in there? I mean,
No,
on that
too
side?
cold. I think it's too cold.
Too cold.
I mean, they'll grow, but they're gonna be slow. South Sound is, well, South Sound seems to have ideal conditions for them. The water's not all that warm down there, with the exceptions of when you get into the upper bays. Like Taunton Inlet, the main body of Taunton Inlet is colder, is significantly colder than Holmes Harbor. But once you get up into the Oyster Bay, the shallow areas, then it warms up quite a bit. So, and that's where the growth in the Olympias. Then I grew them subtidally, and that worked okay, except that they took so long. And I moved them to my beach, and I kept growing them. I had a couple of bags, and I moved them out low because I didn't want them to dry out and get hot or cold. So I had them on a system that was suspended below the surface. It was actually suspended off the bottom in the ghost shrimp sand, so that when the tide rose up, the bag floated up, and when it went down, it landed on the beach, but it didn't get covered with sand because the floats would raise it up. Yeah, that worked, but they're just too slow.
Yeah.
And I kept losing them to barnacles, and then every year you got to go sort them out and clean barnacles off everything, and you got these little tiny things you're trying to clean up. It was just miserable. You need a spot. South Sound has a characteristic that you get all that silt stirred up in the southern bay, in the south end of those bays, and that sets on oysters and prevents barnacles from sticking. So that's kind of what they need. They need some conditions like that. In Willapa Bay, they were naturally growing in the channels, the shallow channels. Willapa Bay is extensive tide flats, and it's cut with thousands of small channels. You know, some you can walk through, some are too deep. But those channels was the substrate for Olympic oysters. They grew in reefs, so there's enough shell there that the Olympic oyster was stuck to that shell. So the harvest back then was they would harvest the reef, break them up, and put them on the upper tides where they could harvest them and fatten them. And so it was a semi-culture. But you know what they did is they harvested out the reefs. They lost the substrate for the oysters to settle, and that was the end of the industry.
So when I order some oysters at an oyster bar, I see a chalkboard and they have all these weird names of different oysters I've never heard of. Where are they coming from?
Those are all Pacific oysters.
Okay.
Yeah.
And everybody puts their own name on it. So there's market names and there's species names.
Okay.
And you don't want to confuse those two.
Okay.
Or sometimes they'll say the company name or the location name. It's really tough when you're selling to a restaurant to tell them what to put on the chalkboard, because their egos get in the way and they're like, oh no, we know what to put on the chalkboard, and then you see that they've put the location and some other random word instead of your brand name on there.
Yeah, if you're picking a name for your oyster, you generally want to have a location in it, and you want to have a good name. You know, we had Race Lagoon, and that was that name sold. People liked that name because it was a location and it sounded good. So right?
Yeah.
We had Race Lagoon mussels and Race Lagoon oysters.
Interesting.
That worked pretty well.
Yeah. The two North Sound farms I work with grow Olympias, so in Similk Bay and in Skagit Bay. In Skagit, they're actually doing tumbled Olympias, very tiny amounts, but
Tumbled Olympias?
interesting, yeah.
Ooh.
Because they have too soft of ground, so
Yeah.
small
Well, not
amounts.
tumbled. They're
they're
stationary.
Yeah.
I mean, if you tumble them,
Yeah.
you just defeat the whole person growing them.
I mean, it's kind of they have to all be suspended, so they're.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't put all these in a tumbler?
Now, well, when you say tumbler,
Yeah.
let's make a distinction here.
Yeah.
Is a tumbler something that you want to bounce around, or is a tumbler just a cage?
Okay, it's just a kid.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
I
suspended
would call it a
cage.
cage.
Yeah.
So yeah, you could. Well, yeah, you could put them in that.
So our tumblers, we have a beach line.
Yeah.
They've got the Rocky Mountains.
Is it above the ground, off the beach?
Yeah.
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 Well, it's not hanging.
Oh, it's
It's
not.
on the beach.
It's
Oh, okay. It's
But the
supported by
wave
the
action
beach.
is going to be knocking it back and forth.
Right.
So I was thinking that was tumbling.
That is tumbling them, and that's great for Pacific oysters. Not good for Kumos and not good for Olympias.
Okay.
So
Did you buy yours from Taylor Shellfish?
Yeah.
Okay, the AP6.
It's exactly like ours. He's next door to us.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, we're like, you're here, I'm here, and he's right
Oh,
there.
nice.
Yes,
Oh.
we're in the same spot.
Yeah, and I think they're still the
So were
only
you on the
source.
other side?
She's on the other side of me.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So then there's the crab sausage of Virginia. which in the industry we call them virginicus. It's the eastern oyster or the American oyster. This oyster is found from up in Canada, all the way down the east coast, through the Gulf of Mexico, all the way down into Mexico. And of course, they're going to be a little bit, the stocks are going to be different depending on where they're from. But we also grow these in Puget Sound. And in fact, they do really well. They get nice and fat. And there were tailors who actually won the Virginica taste contest on the East Coast one year with their Taunton Inlet Virginicas.
Wow.
So they do quite well. They're slower growing than Pacifics. It's going to take maybe twice as long. They naturally grow in nice cup shape, so you don't have to worry about that. They don't like tumbling around so much, but they grow just fine in home starve. I haven't tried it in colder water. They grow fine in they grow quite well in South Sound, Willapa Bay. In fact, historical aside is that after the Olympias disappeared or were harvested to non-commercial levels in Willapa Bay, what they did is they imported Virginicas. And so this was after the transcontinental train had started, so late 1800s, so I think it was like the 1880s, 1890s, around 1900. Those years, they would truck Virginica across the country, put them back in the water in Willapa Bay, and then harvest them. But they actually developed a spawning population in Willapa Bay. It supported an oyster industry for a while until they just disappeared for some reason. We don't quite know.
Are they more resilient to temperature differences?
I'm guessing they are because they're from the East Coast where you have warm summers and cold winters, real cold winters. So maybe they are. They tend to have on the East Coast they have quite a much longer shelf life than Pacific oysters do. And from and they talk about if you read old accounts, they would harvest these things and just leave them out for a couple of weeks and just keep selling them.
Grow better like in the cooler waters over on, I don't know.
I doubt it. I doubt if they grow better than the Pacific because Pacific grows so well and
You
grows
might
so
have more
fast.
success over there.
So the question is anybody here from the East Coast? Okay, so have you eaten Virginicas? Okay.
I lived in Boston for 2 years, so.
Oh, okay. Do you like Virginicas?
Not so much. That's why I was asked. I had to quit working at Island Creek Oysters because all the people who I was talking to there would ask me what my favorite of the Island Creek oysters were.
Oh yeah.
And I had an Olympia oyster shell in my pocket. And I said, this oyster on the West Coast, go there. So no, they're fine. They're great.
So if you grew up on the East Coast, I've met people on Whidbey who grew up on the East Coast and they really like this oyster. They really want this oyster. And to me, it's a bland oyster. It has no flavor. It's just bland. And every time I've tasted it, it's been that way. So
Payless got some in like 3 different times this late winter.
oh yeah.
From Taylor's.
Uh-huh.
I just stumbled upon seeing them there one time and got them. I thought they were really good.
Oh, you like it? Okay.
Oh yeah, I thought they were really exceptional. So I asked them to order more.
Yeah.
Which they did. But it was one of those situations where you really wanted to from the same water,
Yeah.
that oyster in the Pacific, and really see what you could tell.
Right.
But yeah, I thought they were really good.
Well, I grew up on my.
No,
Okay.
I don't know.
They don't usually have the seed available.
Okay.
No, Taylor's pretty
Well,
much the only.
they do produce a seed. They don't normally advertise it
Not
for sale.
not
But
traditional.
if you want some, start making noise.
Yeah.
Tell them, hey, you want some Virginica seed. If you really want to grow some Virginica.
I have to taste one first.
Well, I grew them on my beach side by side with Pacific oysters, and I decided not to grow them again because I just don't like them as much as the Pacific. Pacific oysters have a lot more flavor.
Yeah.
And to me, it makes a Virginica. If you eat them side by side, they're bland. If you're in a New York oyster bar and you got the ambiance of the New York scene and you're eating Virginicas, they're probably great. But for me, they just don't do it. But there are people who really like them, and so we grow them. And commercially they're growing here. So I'd say if you want to try and put the request in Taylor's to make seed available.
I'm not so sure. I mean,
Yeah.
the more I listen to this, I think we live in a really unique, ideal place to be able to grow the oysters we have, and it seems like the Pacifics are really optimal, really.
Yeah, they are. I just like the idea of being able to grow different kinds of oysters. I just think it's fun.
Yeah.
And even if I don't like them particularly, it's fun to serve them so people can taste them and
Yeah.
see what they're like. I've gone to parties with both, you know, and just to see what people's reaction is. And they just like tasting different things. So it's fun. It would be fun to grow for that
I think Hama Hama is doing some Virginicas now as well.
Are they? And finally, we come to the European flat oyster, which is a wonderful oyster. I'd say second to the, in my taste, second to the Olympia. Has a similar type of flavor, but a more metallic, sharper metallic aftertaste. Excellent oyster, but we can't see anymore. I've grown these in Holmes Harbor also, but
They don't grow very well.
they're slow. They grow better than Olympias. They're slow. It take quite a while, like 3 years in suspended culture. But they actually did fairly well. But if you're willing to wait to get them up to size, they're a really nice oyster. And I like growing them. I would do it if
Where in Europe do they grow best?
in Europe where they grow best. I don't know. They're known the best Austrian edges is known as the Boulogne oyster. So Boulogne, France is kind of a known place, but they were harvested up in England, in the Netherlands, and all over. But then they got a disease, and it wiped out the populations in Europe to a large extent. And of course, the imported Pacific oysters, they grow Pacific oysters now. There's still some around, and the Gulf of Maine had a sustainable population for a long time. I think they probably still do, but
Yeah, a couple of our Oyster Network members are actually in Croatia right now eating native oysters. So they will be reporting back on their
I don't know if
experience.
I don't think these grow in the Mediterranean.
Really?
I'm not sure. I don't know about that.
I mean, there's definitely a lot of oysters in Croatia.
Yeah, there
So
are.
I would think that
I don't know if
you think
this
they're
is
just
this is a more
introduced.
northern oyster.
Yeah.
I don't know if it grows there. It might.
Okay.
I don't.
Cool.
I'm not sure about that.
Well, I hope they took lots of photos.
Yeah. So just something to know about. If we can get seed again, I think it'd be fun to grow.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're back to what are the requirements? Okay, so the next thing on it is clean water. I'll talk a little bit about clean water. You guys are pretty familiar with this. Probably had a talk about this. I'm not sure what Marnie Jackson went through.
That was more policy. We covered some water quality stuff and on my lecture as well. But
Okay.
Sego was the only one who was there for that
Oh.
as well. So
Okay, well,
Broad
I'll
overviews are
quickly
great.
go over
Yeah.
water quality because there are some things you really need to know. So there's basically three things we worry about: pollution, biotoxins, and natural vibrobacteria. And these are all different. So pollution is, can come from different sources. It's typically, it might be sewage, it could be industrial contaminants, but it's, so there's two, and we generally talk about two types: point sources, which are marinas. If there's a marina nearby, the state decertifies that area. You can't grow shellfish anywhere near a marina. Now, that doesn't mean you can't grow your own, because that's what they're doing at Lagoon Point, and they're doing it at Sandy Hook. They're growing them in marinas. The state would never allow that commercially. And I kind of warn those people, okay, make sure you know what the water quality is. Nobody seems to have a problem, so I guess it's working.
or they're not
No one's
registering,
dying.
So any sewage treatment plant's going to close an area. Non-point sources. Now this is the real difficulty we're up against in Puget Sound, where you got a nice clean beach, but then slowly it gets contaminated, and you don't know why. So those are the non-point sources. And these are things like failed septic systems, urban or residential runoff, farms, hobby farms. You got 5 acres of horses up here, and it all runs off down to the beach, and wildlife. So you got 30 seals camping out on your beach, and guess what they're doing there? It's not good for your shellfish. So those are pollution sources you got to avoid, and they're mapped out. So I'll go to if we just zoom in on South Whidbey, the brown areas, those are polluted. Those are closed to pollution. So you got Langley, of course, you got sewer outfall there, so that's closed. There's also marina, both those reasons. You've got Sandy Hook is actually closed to pollution because there's a marina there, but there's also seems to be a source some kind of source, probably maybe wildlife, in that area also.
So hang on, so now dark green is the best?
Dark green is, in this case, yeah.
And that's not current, that's not today's map.
It's not, but I checked. It matches today's map.
Cool. So if you
That's not
Google
Michael.
Washington
No,
shellfish
ignore the, I'm only talking about the actual beach classifications.
Okay.
Not the, I mean, this shows some open and closed areas for harvesting. And so the green is open for harvesting. That doesn't mean it's certified or whatever.
Oh, okay.
So I'm only using this to look at the areas that are polluted, close to pollution.
Yeah.
And that hasn't changed. So the
Yeah.
pollution sources
I
hasn't
see.
changed. So you've got Maxwell Beach where the creek runs out. That's a source of contamination. Maybe wildlife in the watershed.
What causes that there?
What's that?
What did you say causes?
Could be wildlife
Oh,
from the birds and things like that. And then Deer Lagoon, the same problem. And that's pretty much it for South Whidbey. Of course, there's a conditional closure in Freeland that we know about due to non-point sources, which they've never quite. They've solved some of the problems there, but they've never quite solved everything. So there's a conditional closure there, and that's for recreational harvesting.
I have questions.
Yep,
What was that happened to Drayton? Is that the name?
Drayton Harbor.
Yeah, what was, I can't remember what that shutdown was that happened
Recently?
a month or two.
Yeah, was it a
Do you remember
sewage spill?
What that shutdown was?
Where is Drayton?
It's up near Blaine.
And they had, it
Right.
was all in the national news.
Right
I
at the
can't remember
border.
what it
Oh, yeah.
was.
Well,
It
that was
a good read.
was that floods?
Well, in December, that whole area was
It was
shut down
December-
for
it was
a month. Yeah.
December it was shut for floods.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, right. There was.
I don't know.
Ooh, it's in my
I can't
notes
think of
on my
I
phone.
didn't
It's
think-
recording right now.
I'll figure it out. Okay, so
Okay.
that's one question. And then, what's your opinion of Freeland Beach for clamming? Because I always worry a little bit about the ship's works there. You know,
Well-
we know about biological stuff, but what about chemicals?
And that's where we see people randomly harvesting. You know, so it's like, do you
They're
run
most-
out and stop them?
They're mostly harvesting away from Nichols. The Nichols area is mostly gosher sand, and so they're not harvesting right there.
No, this is a Freeland Park.
Okay, yeah. So Nichols once had a machine shop there, and there was contamination of the sediments there, but that is, I think that's all buried probably underneath their boat ramp now, and I don't think it's a source that becomes exposed. So I'm not particularly concerned about that. Runoff from Nichols, I don't think is an issue because it's very strictly controlled. You know, when they sand.
So you would eat clams from Freeland Park Beach?
I would,
Okay.
as long as it's not closed.
Because I was
As
planning on
long
going
as
out
it's
tonight,
not
just wanted to.
not conditional closure. It's actually an excellent clam beach.
I
Oh,
know.
it's amazing.
I know, I've
Yeah.
been there, yeah. you-
Yeah.
Kurt, are you able to go up a little bit further north on this map?
Well,
here?
I can back up to the other map.
I just wanted to show you where I live.
Okay.
As I wanted to know if, I live on the west side. Do you know where Lake Hancock is?
Yeah.
So Lake Hancock, the north end, is the southern border of my property.
That's right here.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm just wondering, because you said earlier, wave action and the water is colder.
Those are two issues there. Yes.
So I mean, that's why I'm on Manfred's Beach in Holmes Harbor.
Right.
But you're wondering, that's why I came here tonight, because I wanted to know if it's possible at all to grow them on my beach.
You know, for people I would say it might be, but it'll require a very innovative system. That's you're not going to find off the shelf. You're going to have to do some real experiment. If you're an innovator and experimenter, I've got some ideas that might work, but
What would you have to do differently?
well, because of the wave action, and you also have sediment that moves quite a bit there too on the beach.
Yeah.
So you might have to do something like off the bottom. This is an idea I came up with, which was off the bottom, glued to pipes.
What pipes?
Pipes.
Oh,
You can glue oysters onto pipes, and then they grow onto it, and they cement themselves. But you glue them first, the seed on, to get it started.
oh my
I
God.
mean, this is an really off the wall idea, but it's not unreasonable because I have that one picture you saw of all those suspended Pacific oysters, I actually glued that seed onto those plates, and they grew just great. They grew right onto it. Well, if you want to know, I've got a glue that does it. So, and I've done that research, so it can be done. So if you really want to be innovative, you really want to try some, because look over there, you find oysters on rocks, right?
Oh, I haven't seen it, no.
Well,
no oysters and there's no mussels.
There's not many
on
rocks in that where you are right there.
No, I've
Are
got
there?
it right in front of me. Yeah, I do have rocks.
Down low enough for oysters? I mean,
I don't know how low
At
they have to be.
at zero tide,
yeah,
yes, it does.
I bet you if
Yes.
you look,
I've
walk a
been on
mile
boats.
each, I bet you'll find one oyster on a rock.
Maybe one. No, I've
Yeah.
never seen it. I mean, I harvest seaweed
Okay,
off the.
so my point
rocks,
is,
but-
because I've seen them, my point is you can find, at Double Bluff, for example, you can find oysters on a rock.
Mhm.
And so that is some of the worst wave action that we've got. So if you were to go out there and glue oysters on a rock, they might survive and you might grow them.
Mhm.
But you may not have rocks aren't very convenient to use, especially if you want a 2-ton rock that's gonna stay put. So, you do something that's you create a substrate, and my idea was pipes. So the idea was you'd ram a steel stake, galvanized steel stake into the beach, and the pipe fits right over that, but the pipe is actually encased in something like this. So, because you have a lot of crabs over there, you have all kinds of predators, it's gonna eat all your seed, has to be encased. If you were to do something like that, and this can, if it can survive the wave action, I wouldn't use this in particular, but anyway, and there's other ways. You can glue them to ropes also, or glue them to belting and suspend things like that.
Mhm.
So there are ways, and that might even be a better way to do it. You suspend them off the bottom so the crabs don't get them. So what I'm saying is very difficult and not proven at all, but if somebody's willing to try,
Mhm.
you might find something that works.
Kurt, you might be willing to try that on her property.
Well, I had a guy once who was interested, and then he decided it was too much trouble. So anyway, so it's very challenging. That's what I would say. Very challenging on that
Right.
site.
The
So-
Drayton Harbor Oyster Company and one of the tribes had their oysters and clams recalled for norovirus.
Oh,
protection.
Right.
that's what it was.
Right.
Okay, norovirus. Yeah.
So how would they get norovirus?
Sewage.
That's what I thought.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, we're done with that. We'll talk about biotoxins. Biotoxins are going to occur various places. There are places where it's more frequent than others, but it's not something we can, control for. We just have to monitor. So if there's a biotoxin present, you don't want to eat them, and you do want to keep on top of the monitoring. So that's what the hotline is for, or the website. And then cooking doesn't kill that. So this is what I use for my own harvest. My common sense harvest rules are: know your water quality, check for biotoxins, don't eat raw. I won't eat raw oysters for several days after a heavy rain or flood, summer or winter. I mean, you see that, and all that stuff is washing down from the shore, from the land onto the beach. You're gonna wait till it's done. If you look out there in the wintertime, see brown water after a flood, I'm not going to eat those. That's come from the Skagit River and Snohomish River, and who knows what's in it. So I just wait. I cook the oysters in the summertime. When the water gets warm, we have a Vibrio season, and this is where the Vibrio comes in. Vibrio is a naturally occurring bacteria. Thrives in warm water. It lives in oysters. Some particular strains will make you sick. Not all of them, but they'll make you sick. And it's gastrointestinal distress, gastrointestinal disease. So something you don't want to get. So my rule of thumb, Holmes Harbor gets really warm. And I have had Vibrio tested once in mine, and they were like 100, which, yeah, I'd probably get fine. But I don't want to take a chance. I don't want to get my
Sorry,
friend.
what was you saying? You would get a fine for what?
No, it probably would have been fine to eat them.
Okay.
But I'm not gonna try it. The biggest problem with Vibrio that gets people sick is mishandling of the oysters. So if you go out there and the oyster and it's low tide, they've been baking them for the whole tide, and and the beach is really warm, that's one problem, okay? You bring them in, and then you don't put them on ice right away, you let them sit on your deck for a couple hours in the sun, and then you shuck them for dinner and eat them. That's a good way to get sick. So what you want to do is you want to harvest them as the tide's going out, before the beach is heated up. So they just become exposed, you can harvest them, they're not going to be real hot. You want to put them on ice immediately and keep them cold until you circle.
What I figured out too, for harvesting just as the tide has gone out, is that in my case, because we do have a lot of sewing in on the bags,
Yeah.
that I can get to the bags before the water is off of them.
Sure.
And I can flip them, it saves me having to haul water up in the buckets to wash them. So
Right.
it's just like so quick and easy, and then the tide's out, and
Right.
you're safer.
Yeah.
That was a great tip you gave me.
I'm sorry, what is it that you do?
So, you know, if I have my bags exposed at the zero tide,
Mm-hmm.
I'll go out right before the zero tide while they're still just barely
Okay.
covered with water,
Mm-hmm.
and I wait out, you know, my boots, it's no big deal, and I flip my bags in to
Mm.
get the sand and everything out of them. Because if you wait till after the water is now moving that direction,
Yeah, you can't
then
clean
you have
them
to
off.
go and
All that.
carry water, and so it's just easier and safer to do it that way
Right.
too.
Mhm.
So there's a Vibrio season we have, and it starts the 1st of May. It starts tomorrow, as a matter of fact. And commercial harvesters all have to meet these requirements. If they're going to harvest oysters during the Vibrio season, they have to be certified. They have to have a harvest plan filed with the state health for Vibrio, and they have to follow the guidelines, which is a time temperature matrix. How long they can be, depending on the water temperature, how long they can be out of the water before they have to be refrigerated or before they have to be cooled. So there's this big time temperature matrix. So it's, and they got to do all these record keeping to keep on top of it. So the Vibrio season adds a whole lot to commercial harvesting.
When does the season end?
Mm-hmm.
September 30th.
And if you want to do the Vibrio training, I believe we can get recreational access
Mhm.
to it.
Wait, so the
Well,
Vibrio season starts tomorrow, you said?
It's May through September.
Okay.
So-
And what's the Vibrio training?
It's for commercial farmers.
Yeah.
It tells you it talks about the time temperature matrix, what the conditions are, how much time you have at certain water temperatures. And then there's a point where the water gets too warm, they close it.
But this is for eating them raw.
This is for eating them raw. Now, I eat my oysters all summer, but I cook them. So that's what I do.
Exactly.
I cook my oysters in the summertime.
Yeah.
And so other than that, and the other thing you can do is you could harvest your oysters, go out and drop them down in cold water, and harvest them when they're cold. That's not guaranteed to get rid of Vibrio. I've done a bunch of testing on that. It works sometimes. It depends on where you
You're
are.
harvesting them and then you're dumping them in cold water.
Harvest them, put them in a bag, drop them down. My neighbor does this. You drop them down below the thermocline in
Does
the
Kevin
cold
do
water.
that?
What's that?
Is it Kevin?
No, it's my neighbor Jimmy next door to me.
Okay.
But if you drop them down in cold water, it does reduce the Vibrio levels. And I'm not going to say you're okay because in the testing I did, I was never able, there were episodes that I couldn't account for.
Why couldn't you just do that at home? In cold
Salt water
Oh.
They gotta be
You
filtered.
need- It has to be salt water.
has to be salt water. It's got to be aerated. They got to be filtering.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's not going to work. So
So it's actually, so we did have somebody say he was harvesting, storing them in a cooler, and you know he had a little bubbler to do like a homemade aeration system, but we were able to explain to him why that is actually very much not safe. So in order to recreate the conditions that are safe, you need much more water to oyster ratio and a lot more like filtration and cleaning.
there are places that are very
systems.
successful in
Yeah.
reducing Vibrio in what are called wet storage systems. They do this in Canada, where they bring them in, put them in containers, and they have flowing water go through it, and
Yeah.
it's cold water. It's like 45-degree water or 40-degree water.
Yeah, but so creating that at your home is
That's
way
pretty
more money
difficult.
and effort
I mean,
and
it's-
space than and record keeping.
Right. I
than
wouldn't
you want to do. So,
recommend trying it.
Yeah,
When
you
would
can get a lot of
you-
pneumonia and toxins.
When would you cut yourself off from eating raw oysters this year? Like,
I'll watch the water temperature. It's still cool. I'll still eat them.
yeah.
And when it gets to 60 degrees, much over 60, I'll stop. So 60 is an arbitrary point, but that's what the FDA, the number that the FDA has put on our area.
Is there a way other than sticking a thermometer in the water to figure out what the water temperature is? Is that published any place? Like what?
Well, there are, in Holmes Harbor, no.
Yeah.
I mean, there are buoys on the east, in Saratoga Passage, there are buoys on the west side, but typically, those buoys are taking it from a meter down anyway. So it's not gonna tell you anything about your beach.
Okay.
No. I have, gone out to like Top Inlet, I did some studies where I stuck thermometer and oysters on the beach. I found oysters of 100 degrees at low tide, they're that warm. So,
Wow.
Wow.
and they were alive, I mean, they didn't kill them.
Huh. Hey, Kurt, so I only enjoy cooked oysters.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So is it as crucial for me to have a cooler with ice when I'm harvesting them?
Still a good idea.
Because after I harvest them, I'm not gonna get home for like another 45 minutes to an hour.
Oh, that would be no problem. If you're gonna be home in an hour and you're gonna cool them once you get home, that's really not a problem. As long as it's not cooking in your trunk or something like that.
But if you serve them to somebody else, you want to make sure you're taking all the measures possible so that if they get sick and their estate or their family tries to sue you, that you've done your due diligence.
But I'm assuming
that would
you're
be
gonna,
my main concern with that.
I'm assuming you're gonna cook
Yeah.
them too.
Oh yeah, I will
Yeah.
always
Yeah,
cook them.
cook them.
That's how I do
You're
them.
best off taking them out and putting them on ice right away.
Okay.
It's just it's easy that way, and then when you get home, they're already chilled.
So if you put them on in a bowl in the refrigerator with a damp cloth over them or something, how long can you keep them that way?
Okay, talking shelf life with oysters.
Yeah.
Now, that's a whole nother topic.
Okay.
But it's a matter of personal preference. I would say 3 days
Okay.
maximum.
Yeah.
I don't want to get them after 3 days.
Okay.
Even at 3 days, maybe. Yeah, that's my own personal preference. Now,
That's my run-on.
Okay.
commercial oysters that you get at the restaurant are a lot older than that.
Oh, yeah, okay. See, we have the best.
We do. Okay, so now let's talk about beaches. What's the best kind of beach? So the best kind of beach, to my mind, if you're going to grow Pacific oysters, is a hard gravel cobbled beach because it's easy to work on. The substrate of the beach tells you something about the wave action on the beach. If you got a mud beach, there's not a lot of waves there. You got a sandy beach, well, may or may not be. You can have, if it's down low, you can have a lot of wave action. If you're in a sandy area higher, that indicates not too much wave action. If the bigger the substrate, you get the pea gravel like that Freeland beach I showed you, or like this, there's wave action there, but it's not too much. It's not big rocks. It's not like the west side. This is a good beach. So you'll get enough wave action to knock your oysters around, but not so much that it's going to be detrimental. And that's true all the way to like firm sand and silt is workable. Sand is a problem because sand moves, and sand will move right through your bag and bury your oysters and kill your oysters. So sand is a really difficult one to work with. Probably the worst that we have is sand with ghost shrimp, which half of Holmes Harbor is. And so let's look at some beaches.
Do you have a sense of how long your bags can be buried before the oysters die?
I think that depends on time of year. If they get buried in the wintertime, they're buried for a week, they're probably fine.
Yeah.
But if they're buried for a week in the summer, they're probably dead.
Yeah, that's been my guess too.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
So-
how long did you say?
Well, I think if they're buried, like I said, if they're buried a week, you're probably okay in the wintertime, but not in the summer.
Okay.
But typically they're going to be buried in the wintertime from storms. So this beach, this is really a perfect beach for clams and oysters. If you put oyster bags out there, it would be wonderful. You got a little bigger than pea gravel, so indicates you got some wave action, and you do because this is Freeland Park.
That's what I was gonna say, it's like.
So you get the north breeze, and it would do quite well. You can pick just the right height on that beach. Of course, it's a public park, so you're never going to put oyster bag there, they would stick more than a week. But this is a good example of a good beach. Now, this is the same park, but it's on the other side of the boat ramp. And this is probably one of the most challenging situations we have.
That's the ghost shrimp.
Ghost shrimp. You know what happens when you walk out there, you're
Yeah.
stuck up to your knees.
Yeah.
So, believe it or not, you can grow oysters out here, but you can't grow bags directly on the beach. They have to be floating up off the beach. And that's fine, but how do you get to them?
Yeah.
So, Mark Merrick isn't here, but he's gone through this experience. So if you're gonna do this, you can set up a gear that will float up off the bottom, but you have to work it by boat. And if you can work it by boat, well then it's gonna work fine. If you gotta go out there, you do have to set the gear up, so you gotta start somewhere. But
Plus,
It's not impossible.
It might be an impediment to the whales if you know those things.
that's true. It might be, yeah. So, okay.
So, I have a question, so,
Yeah.
Manfred and I talked to, a guy who, is a little bit further north, across from Bayview Island, and he said that where they grow their oysters, there's eelgrass in front. And so he has like lots of sea stars in his bag and on his bag. And it sounds like his oysters grew like were smaller and took longer
I
to
think he had
grow.
to deal with a lot of pulling the grass off of his
Yeah.
bags too.
So
Yeah,
is
that's
it-
gonna slow down the water flow.
So is that like is that a bad location?
Not necessarily. Is this North Bluff Road?
I think he's up towards Baby Island and maybe around the corner of it.
Oh,
So, around
okay.
that area.
Well, I suspect that he's really too low. But probably the reason he's too low is because it's all sand up above that.
Okay.
So, he would be better off, if I were doing it there, I would get out of the eelgrass, I'd move up the beach, and I would use a system that floats them off the sand
Mm.
at high tide, so that they don't get buried in sand. And if you got starfish in your bags, first of all, if you got eelgrass, you're too low, because that's pretty low for oyster bags. If you got starfish in them, you're also too low, because that's why I recommend the 2 to 4 foot level, gets you above the starfish, and you don't have that problem. So this is what I'm looking at for, if you're gonna go Pacific oysters, then on Whidbey Island, I like the zone between 2 and 4 feet. And there's 2 reasons for that. There's one that I got them right here. It slows their growth, because you don't want them to grow too fast. You want them to grow nice shaped shells and good meats. If you want to grow shell, you can get lots of oyster shell, but without the meat. And then it's going to be a really big oyster before you ever get meats. So I like to grow them, I like to slow them down, because they'll grow too fast. Put them down in the eelgrass, if they're not buried in the eelgrass, they'll grow too fast. You'll get long, flat, really sharp shells. Grow them up 2 to 4 feet, and you're going to have the wave action that beats them around. They're not going to be sharp. They're going to be nice and rounded, easy to handle, easier to shuck. Hardens the shell, so they're exposed to waves, and that produces really the nice half shell shape. Also, when you put them up there, you don't get the starfish in your bags, and it's not as accessible to the crabs. But starfish is a problem. Starfish are a problem. If you're growing at the 0 tide level, you'll get starfish sitting in your bags. And when you have just seed in your bags, the starfish will grow just as fast as the seed. And be really happy eating up all your seed. You'll lose quite a few. So this is how people lose oysters. You lose them to starfish that set in your bags. Starfish also have a planktonic larvae. They're looking for a place to set with lots of nice food. They go right through your bag and set on your oysters.
How long does it take for them to get big enough to do that?
Not very long. They grow fairly fast.
Like what, roughly?
Well, okay. We used to get them out of mussels and lines too. You get. They're gonna they say they set in the spring. I don't know exactly what time. Say they set in May. By June, by July, you're gonna have starfish this big. And if you're putting your seed out, then it's big enough to do damage to your seed.
My theory is
And-
the little starfish are not a problem with really big oysters.
That's true. That's
They
true.
probably even eat some of the barnacles.
Right. Exactly.
That's
There,
true.
you want to get them out.
But as long as you check your bag for them, you're okay, right?
Yes.
Just get 'em out.
Right. So when you sort your oysters and sort through them, you're gonna be pulling out starfish.
Okay.
They will just continue. They'll eat your barnacles and still grow, and eventually get to the size where they'll eat your big oysters too. It just takes a while. So So yeah, you can tolerate starfish sitting on big oysters.
It's gonna get too big.
Yeah.
Do you know what the foot tide level is for our bags?
Yeah, we're at 0.
Oh, okay. Do you think we should be
I
higher?
don't- I think, no, I think we're good, actually.
Well, there's all kinds of restrictions. It's if you move up the beach, you're probably in ghost shrimp.
Yeah, we have ghost room too that we have to kind of walk around, so, and there are some further up from us, but by and large, we
Yeah,
couldn't move
not
higher if we
much,
wanted to,
yeah.
I think.
You think we could or couldn't?
We could, I think.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about this, cause I keep trying to think through the wave action and the sand and I cannot get my head around it. So I was wondering if I could try to show you our situation,
Sure.
and I can't draw, so this would be interesting. So we've got beach, just where it comes up to kind of a lip of sand, so this is eelgrass.
Yeah.
Okay, and then there's a little bit of a lip here.
Right.
And this is pretty much where our bags are.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
along that lip. But they do get buried some.
Yeah.
So would they be better, you know, another 5 or 10 feet up if we could pull that off?
It depends on what the substrate's like.
It's all sand. It's just,
Okay.
It's reasonably hard packed though.
It's originally hard pack. Hard pack you can get away with as long as they will get buried more because you're
you'll
gonna
get
have.
buried more up here.
Well, you figure the higher up the beach, the more wave exposure you have. So you're gonna because down here it's only this is only
The
exposed
surface is
so much of the time, right? The higher you go, the more exposure you have. So the more and so you're gonna have more time probably where it's sand's gonna move.
Okay.
So that's a consideration.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out if there was something about this lip that causes sand to accumulate there, but this makes more sense to me that there'd be more wave action.
Yeah.
Right. So if you can keep them from getting buried, you're much better off up there.
Yeah, so if you had bags, then you were up a little higher on the beach, and you've got some sand shrimp here, I'm not sure how far down they go.
Yeah.
Are you saying there's like a float or something that can go in the bags that will help lift them up?
Yeah, so what you can do, yeah, exactly. You can, okay, right now, you have a line on the beach strung out?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a line that runs like that. We usually have our bags laying up beach from the line.
Okay, so here's what you can do. Here's the beach, and you've got an anchor over here, and an anchor over here, and you got a line that goes along here. You tie your bags or something to those. Okay, so what you do is you put your bag on here, and you put a float. And this would be a crab float or a shrimp float. You want to have it secured tightly with that, so it doesn't fly.
On the outside.
Yeah, on the outside. Yeah. I mean, some people put it on the inside,
Yeah.
but I like to have it on the outside because, and that way your bag floats up off the beach, and now you have to have enough slack in your line
Mm-hmm.
that this will float your bag off the beach. But there's one more thing you have to do. So now you got bags all along here. So this is a lot of upward leverage.
Yeah.
So what you're gonna do is you're gonna pull your anchors out.
Right.
Or you're gonna, and you get this wave action and it starts to pump. And it just pumps anchors right up, especially out of sand. It'll just pump it right up. So what you got to do is say maybe go 2 bags, you put another anchor in. 2 bags, you put another anchor in. This is what I did with my Olympias. That's how I set it up, and it worked pretty well. And I was in ghost shrimp. So if you do that, you just need the anchors and floats.
So the anchors that we have are screw anchors. Are
Okay.
they any better than those anchors for? Let's see. No, one is exactly like that.
I haven't used screw anchors. Depends how big they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. They've got big ones.
And it depends on what you're hitting down here. Does it go to gravel down there, or is it still sand?
They spun in pretty good, so
Uh-huh.
I don't think they hit gravel.
Yeah. So I can't say one's better than the other.
All right, so I got another question. So our bags are attached like that. not
Okay.
the side.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
So could we do the same?
You could do
thing?
that. It's just going to take a higher tide to lift them,
What's-
which probably not.
And
Well,
then-
you know, what I don't like about that is now you're taking this whole bag and you're dumping all your oysters in this little pocket here.
Okay.
Whereas you could, if you do it like this, they're spread out and have more room.
Yeah.
So I like it like this for my own.
You know, I have noticed that. I'm gonna change it, yeah. They kind of pile up and some of them get stuck in the corners.
Yeah, right. That's why I like to have it like this where they're using the
And
room.
then how
bag.
would you attach these bags to that line?
I would use these buckles that I use.
Buckles.
You know, I'd like to, like I have on this bag here, which I think that's what you have.
Yeah, we just got
buckles is
all
he talking
in,
about?
so
Yeah.
it's just a matter of changing.
What are these? Oh, with zip ties.
Yeah, heavy zip ties, doubled.
Yeah, and then how do these attach?
Okay, this is only half the buckle. So the other half, let's say this is your line, it's going along the ground there. So the other half of the buckle is zip tied to this. And the way I do these is, these are 18 inches, everything's 18 inches. Doesn't matter which one I start on, they all fit. You can start anywhere.
18 inches from here.
18 inches from here to here, center to center.
I love that system.
And I
so
set
it's
my-
easy to disattach and put back on.
Now you might have to use a pair of slip joint pliers to get these off. They get barnacles in them and sand,
Right.
but a pair of pliers works and they come right off.
I love it.
So that's what I do.
Taking a picture of that.
So when you said everything is 18 inches, 18 inches on the side makes it 18 inches.
I just,
The next set is 18 inches too?
yeah, so it's 18 inches from here to here. It's also 18 inches from here to the next one.
Got it.
And the whole bag's set up there. So I can go out and put them anywhere on there and I'm not messed
Yeah.
up in sequence.
All right, now, Don and I, share a space.
Yeah.
And he's got some bags that are so full of giant oysters.
I know.
And our line broke. And I was out there by myself, and he's got bags that are 30 feet away. That it was all I could do to pull them back to the line.
Right.
So the float system, like, what are you?
You're limited. Yeah, it's oyster. Once they get big, it's not gonna work.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it depends what your solution, my solution, I have a really simple solution. Is once my oysters get about this size,
Yeah.
I take them out of the bag and put them directly on the beach. And I can do that, where I am, and it works great. So when I go out and pick up oysters to cook, I just pick them off the beach.
Yeah.
And the wintertime, we get storms, it'll wash them around. So I'll have to go out, a couple times in the winter, at the end of my beach, pick up buckets of oysters that have crawled down the beach, bring them back. And maybe I lose a couple, but big deal.
Yeah.
The bigger they get, the more meat there is, the fewer oysters it takes.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's no reason why a buckle system can't work with those tumblers.
Oh, it would, sure.
And can I also attach floats to them?
Yeah, you can. It's just when you attach buckles, you want to make sure things are tight.
Yeah.
You don't want to put a lanyard on here. And a lot of people do this. And that's kind of like I have here.
Right.
But you don't want to put a lanyard here and say give yourself a couple of inches with a buckle on it. Those will snap off.
Yeah.
They will, because there's slop in there.
Too much.
You think it's going to work, but eventually it's going to wear out. It's just so much wear. It'll wear itself out and break right off. Make sure they're attached directly straight to something.
How would you attach a float?
The float, I would. Here's what I would do. See how this handle is attached? Now picture this a little bit longer with a float going through the middle of the float.
Okay.
That's what I would do.
So what are those crimps you get somewhere?
The which?
The crimps.
The crimps you can get from Ring Supply. They're called C rings.
They're called what?
C rings,
C rings.
and they're available in 3 different sizes.
It's like the capital C hyphen ring.
C. Yeah, exactly. C dash ring.
C ring.
They're not hog rings. There's a difference between hog rings and C rings. These are not
And
hog rings.
this is a C ring?
That's a C ring.
And this is
Okay.
wire, or what is this?
That is a solid, I'll call it nylon. It's not. It's a different. It's a Monsanto product, but it's basically a nylon monofilament, and it's sold for agricultural uses like grapevines, things like that.
So when you in work, you buy the C rings from?
The sea rings, any marine supply types, like Lummi Fishery Supply, which is Go-To Marine, or Seattle Marine Fishing Supply.
Go-To Marine.
Yeah, Lummi Fishery Supply has their retail outlet is called Go-To Marine.
That's the website.
Yeah, I'm not, yeah, I think it is, it's probably gotomarine.com.
Okay.
Okay.
And do they sell those like in a pack?
They sell about a pound, I think, is how it goes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like, they're like something like $12, $15 a pound, but there's a lot in a pound. So,
Okay.
The first co-op purchase.
No, so this one, yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
This is exactly what we need. So
Yes.
I have, I have some of this stuff. And, I'd be willing to, I don't know how much I have, but I have enough to make a few bags.
Oh, you made this stuff? Or?
Yeah, this is 3 millimeter. It comes in different sizes, 2.5, 3, 4, and 5 millimeter. Down here, I've got 5 millimeter and reinforcing the bag.
Oh, what is this called here?
This-
That you attach the buckles with?
These are zip ties.
Oh, okay, but what kind of zip ties? You said.
This is, they're heavy zip ties. Are they done by, how do they do it, by number? I can probably, on my computer, I've got a list of all that
Big
stuff.
enough to fit through the hole.
Oh, you do it on another slide?
What's that?
Oh, on the.
It's not on a slide, I have to get out of this, and I have a list of all my materials.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so you said it was reinforcing the bag, so you did reinforce them.
Yeah, if you don't reinforce them, they're gonna wear out faster and eventually break. Especially if you're putting, if you're doing floats on your bags, then it's a lot more force.
Oh, you reinforce them with these.
I reinforced it with it's a rod, the same type of material except it's 5 millimeters.
Oh, okay.
So are you reinforcing the buckle?
I'm reinforcing the bag. I don't want the bag to rip.
Oh.
So you see how it just spreads the load out over distance of the bag, more meshes on the bag.
Well, okay, but you just put it on either side of the buckle. That's why I asked.
No, this is a rod that goes straight across like this.
From here to here?
The rod goes from here to here,
Okay.
and it's held in with medium-sized C-rings, and then a zip ties the buckle to that.
I did, I'm not sure if I got it.
And this, if you're gonna, once you put floats on things, things will wear out eventually.
Now, the nice thing is if you're using a tumbler, you don't need to deal with that because it's pretty rigid.
Right, you just need to find a good rigid spot on it. I mean,
Yeah.
you wouldn't wanna probably put it through a weak mesh to find a corner or something.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah. So just make sure you have good strong zip ties on that.
Strong zip ties and everything's cinched up tight.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, when I see how I left a tag on there. The reason for that is so I can grab that with a pair of pliers and retighten these things.
Hold on. So you can.
Well,
you
these
need-
can
you need the.
these can work
Oh, you
a little
need
bit
that.
loose. So I
Yes.
leave a tag on. I don't cut my zip ties straight right there, and so I can get a pair of pliers on there and pull that tight again.
I've noticed a lot of the other guys leave their tags on, and they leave them pretty long.
Yeah, I don't like them long.
Okay.
They just catch barnacles. They just collect barnacles.
Okay. Because I was thinking they were doing that. My reason, I thought, is because that way you have fewer pieces of plastic that get lost on the sand.
I never take them. Okay, I have a rule for zip ties.
Yeah.
I only use zip ties where it's permanent. I don't use zip ties anywhere where I'm going to cut them off on the beach.
Oh.
Because you end up with plastic all over the place.
Right.
I don't want zip ties all over the beach.
No. And I try to be really methodical, and that's why I thought they left the tags
That's-
on, because it makes it easier. You have fewer pieces, and it's easier to find.
That's why I have buckles. There's nothing to get lost.
That's a good idea.
The other end of the buckle's not going to get lost. It's tied to the line.
How do you seal the end of yours then?
Oh, okay, just like this. Just fold this over,
Yeah.
pull this down,
And you buckle it again.
and I use a buckle here. I like that
Beautiful.
because, you can use, if you use like Taylor sells a hook.
Can you send me that?
If you use a hook,
Yeah.
you've got to have some kind of give in this. It can come loose, or it's really hard to get the tension just right with a hook.
Right.
And if you're using a bungee or something, it don't last very long.
Right.
So this stuff is rigid. This is I'm just when I make the bag, I put everything together. The last thing I do is I tension this and crimp it. so that I end up with this just right. Now, what you want is, you want the bag to close, and you want to make sure you have no hole in the end of your bags.
Yeah, that's something Don
That's
and I
hard.
discovered. It was, we
Yeah.
did it wrong. We put our seed in it.
Yeah, you
The
put your
seed was
bag up,
coming out.
the seed's falling out.
Yeah.
Oh, the seed falls
The
out when
seed
you're
was
starting
coming out the
out.
little corner.
If
that had the
you
holes.
don't get your corners tight.
I see. Now, when you have a, you can't really use a buckle system, can you, for the tumblers? I mean, there you're just kind of stuck with a zip tie because I don't see a good way to buckle it. Or maybe you can.
You mean for closing it or what?
Yeah, for locking it shut.
Oh, it doesn't, oh, I see.
Because it kind of,
Well, there are things you can do. There are various types of clips.
okay.
I can't picture how the end of the tumbler looks, but
Mhm.
there's gotta be some way. I mean, you might be able to do something like this, like you have a single one and it goes around and hooks in. I don't know, but there's gotta be a way to do it without using a zip tie you have to cut.
Yeah, okay. I'll have to think about
I just want to get away from, I don't like to see people out there zip tying everything together and they're out cutting them off.
Yeah, I love your system. This is wonderful. Yeah.
So, okay, well, we're pretty much in the gear now, so the only, okay, I wanted to show this picture because I think this is a lot like your situation.
Is that our bags?
No, this is my beach.
That looks pretty similar.
This is my beach. This is the first setup that I did on my beach. So you notice, see where the water is? That's the edge of the eelgrass.
Okay.
Okay, and over here, that's the edge of the ghost shrimp.
Yeah.
And I've got, and just like you, I've got this little zone here. And that is a sand dollar zone. That's where the sand dollars live.
Are you
Yeah.
on the east or the west side?
I'm on the east side of Holmes Harbor.
Same size we are.
I'm on the
Oh, how
east,
close?
I'm south, a mile south, something like that.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so I started here, and several things happened. One is I got to walk across all this stuff to get up there, and that's not very fun.
I found a solution. I use snowshoes.
Okay, I've
Oh,
done that.
really?
Yeah, right, I've done that.
Yeah.
But still, it's cumbersome. To haul your bags all the way up, it's really cumbersome. So that was one problem. Two is I do get sand in bags, and I do have to pick them up every now and then and shake them out to get the sand out. Now it's tolerable, but it's kind of a pain. Three, I got starfish in bags here, and they eat my oysters. They eat my small oysters. I'd have to pick the starfish out every time I serve my oysters. So that's a problem. And three is that this line between, I don't know what your beach is like, but on my beach, the line between the ghost shrimp, the sand dollars, and the eelgrass moves over
What's the
time.
problem with the sand dollars?
Sand dollars are fine. No problem with sand dollars. Sand dollars, I think, keep the eelgrass from encroaching because of all their moving. I don't know if they can keep the shrimp from encroaching. But there's this dynamic movement.
Like what did, oh, okay.
So what happens on my beach, because I've been there for over 30 years, and I've watched this happen. I've actually put stakes in at the edge of the eelgrass to see what happens. Eelgrass moves in and out. So sometimes eelgrass is way up to here, and then I might have a little tiny band of sand dollars in a stable place to put my bags. And sometimes the ghost shrimp move over this way. And so it's a dynamic system. And sometimes the eelgrass wins, sometimes the sand dollar wins, sometimes the ghost shrimp wins. But it results in, I don't have my stable patch moves a bit, and I lose bags. But what really got me was the fact that, okay, they grow too fast, I get sand dollar, I get starfish in my bags, and it's really hard to work them out there. And then in the wintertime, in December, when I want oysters for dinner, it's midnight when I gotta go out there.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
I
I give up after 9 o'clock. I go to
Is it
bed.
too
So.
bright? Is it too
I think
bright?
so.
Do you have it on
Yeah,
bright,
we-
or?
Well, I got the same headlamp that you have after you showed me yours, which
Yeah.
lit up the entire beach.
Yeah.
Which will help you if you're sinking because someone might see your head bottom.
Right. So I moved my whole thing up to the ground. So this is okay. This is actually my neighbor's beach, but this is what it looks like, where the sand ends and it turns into gravel. And so I'm up here at 2 to 3 foot tide level on mine now. No problems. No, bitter shapes on my oysters. They grow slower. They get rounded. They get nice and fat. I don't have to walk out. I can get out there at 9 o'clock instead of midnight on a low tide, because they're much higher, so I don't have to wait for
See,
it.
that's, okay, so that probably explains why when I was growing them on my own beach, because they were kind of supposed to grow like this, and they were growing slower,
Yeah,
yeah.
slow is
It
good.
almost took like more than a year for them to get.
That's fine with me, because that means they're gonna stay in that size for.
Well, why did you shift from growing there to down?
It's a long, sad story, but I'm just telling that story.
Yeah, actually, I think Kurt would have a good
So
perspective on
Kurt,
it.
I was growing them on my beach, and I was sure they were getting vandalized. Kevin was like, no, nobody ever does that. But sure, I actually was standing on the edge of my bluff, looking down. I saw a woman dragging them up. I ran down. I caught her red-handed, and I was saying, why are those your oysters? And he's like, no, but this is illegal. And she was dragging them up, and the guy was with her was saying, this is, aquaculture. You need to be licensed. Blah blah blah. She claimed it was her beach. I was like, well, maybe she's a native, but she didn't look it. I mean, it's like, this is my bluff, And then they reported me to the Army Corps of Engineers, and I got a call, and I said, everybody goes them on the beach, and she says, yeah, I'm sorry, but you're gonna have to move them now, because I got reported or something. And so Kevin took my oysters, I gave them to him, but that's why for the longest time I quit, right? And so now I'm back, safety in numbers. I'm on a community beach that several people, but I'd love to go back just because the conditions are describing.
Yeah.
So that's, I don't know what the ins and outs of all that, but when I started to walk the path of what it took to get official, it was onerous. I had to work with several departments. I had to go down and take pictures of eelgrass and mark it and stake it and send in photographs and fill out all this documentation and apply to 3 different departments.
Yeah.
I just gave up.
Oh yeah, it's not worth it.
No.
So I don't bother.
Okay. People just don't bother. Yeah, I was unfortunate.
That's unfortunate, and there are some just nasty people.
There's somebody in Beverly Beach.
Yeah. I wonder if things have changed, people move, people.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. Maybe I can try again.
Yeah, I don't know, that's unfortunate, and that's the only case, that's the first case I've heard like that.
Yeah, she was adamant, just passionate about this. And I thought, well, maybe it's because she's walking the beach and she thinks it's an eyesore. So I moved it way out beyond, there was eelgrass, and then there was another mound that was pretty hard beyond that. It was deeper water. Put them way out there, she's still recording. So.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think comes down to common sense. Not everybody has it, but
Yeah, it's good.
but
We're
we're
gardening, right?
I mean, this is not commercial. We're not doing this commercially.
No.
We don't, as far as I'm concerned, we don't fall under the same
I wouldn't think
classification.
so.
We're not commercial
But
aquaculture.
somehow the book was thrown in.
So, I'm gardening within 200 feet of the bluff. Do I need a development permit for my garden because I'm in the shoreline
I'm
zone?
sure if you pushed it, they would do something.
Yeah,
But,
but I mean, I'm talking about my land garden.
Yeah.
How ridiculous is it gonna get?
That's true.
So, a single family house, it's reasonable to expect you have a garden, and that garden includes an oyster garden. But here's another thing, here's another point. Why do we own tidelands? The only reason we own tidelands is because they were sold for oyster farming. And in fact, in some areas, there's a reversionary clause that states they can take tidelands away if they're not being used for oyster farming. So, go back to 1889 in the first legislature. Now we're not commercial, but we're doing what tidelands were sold to do. And if we own those tidelands, or a community owns those tidelands, that's what they were sold for in the very beginning. So
what about people who have beach that doesn't formally own the tideland?
gray area.
Yeah.
Who owns it? Either it's probably the state.
The state owns it, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, south of me, there's state-owned beach.
Yeah.
And so gray area.
I mean,
Well, maybe not a gray area. I mean, it's you're going on state land, but
yeah.
does anybody care? Then it comes down to does anybody care?
Yeah. Honestly, yeah. Anyway, that's my story.
Yeah,
So,
well, that's an interesting
yeah.
story. That's the worst one I've heard.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
So okay, that's a deal. Here's another beach. This is cobble, and that's you can put your pegs anywhere on there. So you just have to make sure your gear it stayed down. This is a little more difficult where if this is too high, well, maybe out here on the rocks you can find a spot or something. Or you can do what you're doing to get out to the more stable zone. But, and here's the type of beach that's a lot less wave action, so there's some mud in there, but you can see that he didn't sink. And there's enough gravel in there that, you know, another suitable beach for doing it. Well, those are good places. Okay, this I just wanted to, I was going to talk about, okay, you've got some areas that are really challenging. Okay, you're in one of them. The west side is mostly very challenging with some exceptions. There's people growing oysters right in here at Whidbey Bay, and they're out of the worst of the weather, and they're protected, and it seems to work pretty well. There aren't too many places like that on the west side. There may be some around in there, but basically it's much more challenging because you got so much wave action. You got rocks, you got sand. Not impossible, like I said, but you really got to be willing to work at it and be innovative. So that's the end of my talk. I did I brought some gear, which seems to be, I wanted to show you these anchors. You're using screw anchors? This is what I use in sand. Loose sand, I'll use bigger. I'll use a little bigger if it's mostly sand. But if you're in sandy, like where I'm at my beach, I've got a couple feet of sand and it goes into really small gravel, and these hold really well. And I drive these in.
What is that?
It's a copy of like a duckbill anchor.
Oh, you
So,
made this?
so I drive this, I made these, drive this in, and when you pull it, it feels like this.
Oh, yeah.
And so it doesn't pull out. And this is what I would use in between your lines. But if the screws work,
The screws work really well.
Screws.
Yeah, they're easy to get in because you can just.
sure, yeah.
So you say you drive those and you pound them in, or you?
I have a tool that has a hook on it here, and it's a rod,
Okay.
and I just hammer it
All right.
in. Once you get to depth, you pull back to settle.
And how deep do you think you're putting that in?
Oh, I'd go a couple feet.
Okay.
It depends on how soft the sand is.
Yeah.
You want to go down until it gets firm,
Yeah.
and then pull back.
Yeah.
These are cheap and easy to make, so they're, I mean, as far, compared to a screw anchor, these aren't the constant.
What rope do you recommend?
Okay, on anchors, if I'm gonna use, now this is a different kind of anchor, and I use this in cobble. I use this on my beach, but this one's big. This is the wrong size. But,
Well, to someone who has no skills in building anything,
yeah,
I
well then, that's probably
I
not
could
your,
pay you.
probably not your
It's
thing.
important.
Yeah, that's what clam digging's all about.
Right.
Just ask for a shovel and that's all.
Yeah.
That is cool though.
Where did you get the end pieces from?
Well, this is, 8-inch, plastic culvert material.
Oh.
See that?
Uh-huh.
That's just standard. Did I cut it? No, I didn't even cut it. No. So I sized the diameter to fit that diameter. This is corrugated pipe.
Okay, it's correct.
It's just that flexible corrugated pipe.
Oh, okay.
And that's what both ends are. And then this one, I actually had these set up at one time. I don't have the right end on the end, but it had you could put a rod through this, and it was set on 2 rails or 2 lines, and it would actually roll around like this.
So that's one of those screwing caps like down in my, isn't it? Right, you can open and close it with, right? It's not screwed.
No, it doesn't screw in.
It doesn't?
No, it's a solid plate. It's just held in with zip ties.
Yeah, but I say this thing that's on the end here.
No, it's also held in with zip ties.
Oh, okay, you
It was
just attach that.
It was just reinforcement to hold a rod that
I
goes
see.
through it. And I had one. I've got a different end on this end, but I had one like that, and this would sit on a rod that went through it.
If one pin craps out,
Oh, it's
would you
just
have
one way
an
to do
extra
it.
one up here? Because this pin is acting.
Right?
Dyneema. This is fairly
Say that
good.
again?
Dyneema.
Dyneema?
Dyneema. Dynema.
And how wide is, how fat is it?
I'm using, with the smaller anchor, I use a 3/16, and I go through double. And so I put it up here and I double it all the way out to the end. And then I run a piece of rubber hose over that. So where the rope comes out at the top of the beach, I've got a rubber hose in there to help with the chafe.
So you put
Now-
a rubber hose around it?
I put it through a rubber hose.
Okay.
And but with the 68s, you don't have a big enough hole, so you gotta use a fairly small rope. And with this one, this hole's really big, so I would use a piece of I would probably use this stuff. This is 3/8 twisted 3-strand copolymer. And it's a fairly inexpensive and versatile all-around rope. This is what I use for my ground lines.
So what was the name of that rope?
This is 3-strand twisted copolymer, 3/8 inch.
So you know what I use, and it seems to work. What's your opinion? So I bought mooring line with a loop on the end, so it made it easy to do the one side into the screw in the anchor, and then I just tie off with a good knot on the other.
But what's your mooring line? What kind of line?
I'm trying to remember, but it's like
Probably
half
nylon.
inch. It's like half inch standard mooring line.
Probably it's nylon then.
I think so.
Is it? Yeah. Probably double braid or.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really good quality.
Yeah. Right. No, that works great. It's quite a bit more expensive than this.
Yeah.
The Dyneema is very expensive, but in the 3/16 size, it's not really that.
Okay.
The reason I bought these big ones is because I use these on my electric fence at the ends of my fence to tension the fence, and I use actually 3/8 Dyneema on those because I pull a lot of tension into my electric fence. So, and because that's all I had. I didn't have any of the 68s left. So, if you're going to use these, you got to make sure you get the galvanized iron ones.
Oh yeah.
Because they make these with aluminum. And I started off with aluminum and hit a rock on the beach and just broke the anchor. So the galvanized steel ones don't do that. They go right through everything.
Mm-hmm.
And you said you have a list of supplies.
I have a list of
Nutrition?
supplies I do have a list.
And Kurt, how did you use this?
If you send it to me, I'll share it with the group.
How did you use this last one, the 3-strand twisted? Was
No,
that your
no,
mooring line?
I use mooring line.
Okay.
The 3-strand twisted?
That's for your mooring line?
Well, no, this wouldn't be a mooring line.
Oh,
That's not, yeah, we use different.
oh, okay.
I use this on my anchors like this.
Oh, okay.
For these anchors, I do it just like this.
Got it.
And I use it for the ground line, so my line that I tie my bags to,
Oh, okay.
I have all my buckles attached on this side.
Okay.
So this just stretches out on the beach. I clip the bags, so I use this rope for that also.
Okay.
Okay, so I've got a question for you over here. So if you've got your screw anchor of some
Yeah.
sort, and it's got an eye here, what line would you use, and would you do anything to protect that knot, or?
That's galvanized steel?
I think so.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't do anything to protect it. I would just use a knot that, what I would do with the knot, I would do let's say this is your eye.
Okay.
I would go through and I would go through again.
Oh, that's probably good enough.
And then I put 2 half inches in there.
Oh, okay.
And that just gives it that just gives it more chafe resistance.
Yeah.
That's what I would do. It's real simple.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, these are a whole lot cheaper than screw anchors. Screw anchors are kind of expensive.
Yes, screw anchors are expensive, but I like them.
Okay.
They're clean, they're
Yeah.
easy, and I like the mooring thing.
Uh-huh.
I have used the other kinds of line before, but,
The type of line is not that important.
yeah.
It just needs to be big enough to be chafe resistant.
But I'm probably gonna thread it through more of those type of.
Okay,
and
if
then-
you thread it through,
Yeah,
you need to tie a knot at each one or seize it to the eye of each one.
okay, and
Because you don't want it to move.
right, and then I'll probably put 2 tumblers, and I'm gonna try attaching a float, I'm gonna do
Yeah.
that next.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be a good idea. And then, yeah, I just want to make sure that you don't want that rope moving back and forth through the eye
Yeah,
of your thing, because that'll just wear it out.
Okay.
And you're gonna get barnacles on it,
yeah,
which is the worst.
okay,
So either tie a knot every one you go through, or easier than that, because you might want to adjust the tension, just seize it on with heavy twine.
okay.
You know, do you guys know what seine twine is? Yeah, you do that. That's what this is. This is heavy seine twine.
How do you spell that?
Seine is S-E-I-N-E. It's a tar nylon twine. And it comes in a zillion different thicknesses.
Okay.
And a heavy one like this would be really, really good for seizing a line to that eye if you wanted to do that.
Now, what is this? Is this parachute cord?
No, that's not. This, I don't recommend this. This
Okay.
is polyethylene twine, and it's made for fixing polyethylene trawl nets. It's relatively inexpensive, it's really easy to use. What I don't like about it is very little UV resistance. So if you leave it out in the sun, it just gets toast. Doesn't matter. I don't like it.
You were saying the same twine would be good for if you've got more eyes, for tying the rope going through the eye, so it's not moving back and
Yeah.
forth.
Right, yeah, that's what I would use. Or you just actually tie a knot. It's
Yeah.
just, it's easier to tension. If you stretch the whole thing, it's easier to get the tension right. Although maybe you want it to, no, you don't need it to come up off the bottom because the floats are gonna do that. So you want it fairly tight, you want to stretch it fairly tight. So it's just, I mean, you could, I don't know what's best, maybe tie a knot to each loop or seize it on. It's a matter
I
of
would try
preference.
tying it just to keep it simple,
Yeah,
and then start with that, see
Yeah.
how it works. But yeah, great ideas.
yeah, I've used that and it worked pretty well. I did a test with Kumamoto oysters in Tottenham, the same type of system that worked real well.
So if you were gonna do that and use bent rebar, you know, to,
I don't like bent rebar.
okay.
I'll
that's
tell you
fine.
why.
Yeah.
It rusts. And when it rusts out, if you use the bent rebar like a loop driven in the ground, what happens is it's gonna rust out at the top. You have two sharp points
Okay.
that's sticking out of the beach.
Well, mine just disappeared, I don't know what happened. I mean, maybe
You're lucky.
Maybe it just broke and.
I mean, a lot of, they use quite a bit in aquaculture for stapling down nets, rebar, but those they pull out every year, you know, typically they'll pull out after a
Maybe
year.
that's what happened, it pulled out.
Yeah, but I don't like non-galvanized rebar because it'll rust with a point.
Yeah.
So I like rope. You know, anything I can do with rope that's not steel, I'd rather do with rope. Steel is always gonna corrode. I've used T-posts in the beach, that was a big mistake. Same thing. They rust out at the beach and leave you with a sharp dagger.
Ouch, that's
Yeah.
it.
I'm gonna take
This
this
is
aside.
fascinating.
I'll try not to step in front of your camera.
That's
Yeah, this is good.
Oh, that's plastic.
Yeah, that's plastic.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's easy to cut and bend, drill.
Is it ABS?
No, it's HDPE regrind. So what it is high density polyethylene that's been basically, I think, recycled. It's polyethylene that's been reground and made into another sheet. So it's not virgin polyethylene.
And what was that?
That sheet?
Yeah, what was
It
the
was
sheet?
it was a 4x8 sheet that I bought from the plastic supply place. Quarter inch. Yes, it was, they're not real cheap, but I think it's like, it was like 75 bucks, no, 50 some bucks. I don't remember what it was, 50 bucks a sheet or something, but you get a lot of anchors out of it.
Yeah, I would think so.
So yeah, by the time you get it done, they don't cost that much.
Yeah. Do you have thoughts about the fine mesh compared to the?
You know, I brought these just to show that you don't have to start with half-inch oysters. And if we don't have, bags are available in all kinds of sizes. So here's three different sizes. So this is for seed. And I actually this is for seed bag, but these are way too big, the bag itself.
Mm-hmm.
So I went down and this was a prototype bag I made, and then I had to make bags for us this size. And I used this as a nursery in Lopa Bay,
Mm-hmm.
and we set them up. We set them up like this size
Mm-hmm.
because you know you got this little tiny seed in this bag, and you got all this area, and all it is places for barnacles and everything else to set that don't do any good. So this size, I like to size the bag to the seed. You got small seed, you use a small bag. You got bigger seed, you use a little bigger bag, and when you got big seed, you use your biggest bag.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't like a bag bigger than that. I have some bags that are bigger. I have bags that are over 40 years old. I bought bags in the early 80s that I'm still using. But
If you have larger seed, or once the oysters get bigger, isn't it easier to clean when they have the larger?
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think you get better flow. They don't clog as much.
Yeah.
So it's better to have the bigger mesh. But on the other hand, there's something to be said for enough mesh, because if you get a barnacle set, they'll set on a small mesh. You'll get more barnacles on the bag if you run your oysters. If you have a real big mesh, you get more barnacles on your oysters. So I don't think I'd want to go any bigger than this.
Does it matter though? I mean, it's more about presentation. I mean, in terms of
If I have to scrape barnacles off my oysters, it matters.
why do you have to scrape them?
Like you said, presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other than that, I mean, if it used to be in my home or whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean,
But they get heavier too. You know, if you get too many barnacles on them,
yeah.
they just get heavy. And
Well, the barnacles are competing nutrients too, aren't they?
I think they eat a much larger size particle than what the oysters eat in general. So I don't think so, because they have a much coarser filament that they sweep the water with. So I don't think they're necessarily competing.
Okay. How long do you think a bag lasts?
Like I said, I have bags that were
In use.
made in the early '80s.
In use.
In use, yeah. I don't like to use them much because they're too big. They're bigger than this,
Yeah.
you know, and they made them too big. And so it's a lot of waste in bag space. Now, if you got really big oysters, that's the bag to use.
But I mean, through a season, I mean, how often should you change them out?
Oh, how often when do they foul up? Guaranteed, March and April, you're gonna get nailed by barnacles.
Yeah.
And our barnacle set period is like from mid-March through May, it tapers off into June, and by July, I'll change my bags.
You
I'm not
completely
gonna-
change your
I'm
bag.
not
So
gonna-
about 1 year per bag, roughly.
Well, if you put a clean bag out in July,
Yeah.
you can probably let it go until the following July, as long as you don't get a late barnacle set that'll affect it too much. And that's what I do. And I don't bother changing my bags, I won't change my bags now, I'll wait till the barnacles.
So wait 1 year until they're so bad, and then,
Well, I don't need to wait a year, but if they get bad, we need to change it.
yeah.
But we know we got the spring barnacle set coming, so we gotta be prepared for that. So you don't wanna, if you run out there right now, the 1st of May, and change your bags, you're just gonna get hit again,
Right.
with barnacles.
Yeah.
So there's really no reason to do it right now.
So I mean, if I go get my seed in June, probably the bag will make it to June for one season.
Probably,
Okay, and then
Yeah.
change out the bag.
especially if you flip your bag over.
Yeah.
Now, what you're gonna find though is when you do that, you're gonna have to change them a lot more frequently.
Yeah.
Because once you bring your bag up off the bottom, you're gonna have a lot more barnacles.
Oh, I am.
Oh,
Yes.
really?
Oh, yeah, the bag's gonna get heavy, you gotta cheat. That's the downside of that
That's the
system.
downside of floats.
That's the downside. Anytime you bring the bag up off the bottom, you're gonna get a lot more barnacles.
Well, what if
Is that
I,
because of the set of the larvae?
It's because there's just so much more water flowing through them, that there's more opportunity for them to contact that.
so here's an idea. So what if I go ahead and put the floats on, but I keep a relatively tight tension so that they can't float up very high, but they're still seated on the bottom, but not enough for the,
I don't think it's gonna help you.
really?